Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to NewsWire here on this Friday as we close out the week. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you for our edition of the show. We've got a fun one planned for you. Of course, tonight could be the end of the NBA season. Say it ain't so. It's possible that we get a sweep in the NBA Finals. That's right. Boston takes on Dallas tonight. We'll have a preview of that game. Coach Young will be with us to tell us if indeed it is over after tonight. In addition to that, we, of course, have our guest contributors from Legal Sports Report. We've got Kyle Irving breaking down the National Basketball Association. And not to mention, folks, I'm in the city, in the county, where there may be a parade. That is true. In the National Hockey League, the Florida Panthers are one game away from having a parade in my county. We'll see if that ends up happening. We'll get to hockey in just a minute. Let's get started here with some breaking news here on the show. The most money ever given to a kid playing college basketball in terms of an NIL deal. That number has been revealed. It happened today. $2 million negotiated for a player. His name is Coleman Hawkins. If you've never heard of him, you and me both. 6'10", is committed to play for Kansas State. And again, $2 million is the most ever given to a player in college basketball, a paid college basketball player, an NIL deal, and ends up leaving Illinois, going to Kansas State. And naturally, this is a really big deal because it sets the precedent for what players can potentially get paid in the future. I have no idea if this will help Hawkins and Kansas State and the Wildcats get to the NCAA tournament or not, but naturally it'll help the other kids playing college basketball. All right, well, as I mentioned yesterday, it was more of the same. The Florida Panthers now on the road go to the Edmonton Oilers and push them around for a couple of periods before the Oilers woke up. It was too little too late. The final score was 4-3 in that one, and the Cats are now up 3-0 in the best-of-7 series. Now, unlike the NBA, there is some precedent for coming back from 0-3, but it doesn't appear to be the case here, as the Panthers are just the better team in this series. Sam Reinhart had the first goal with less than a minute to go in the first period. Edmonton did tie it up at 1, but then the Panthers went up 2-1, and then they went up 3-1, and then Alexander Barkov scored in the second period to make it 4-1, and then Edmonton came back, but it was too little too late. And Oilers just don't look like the team that they looked like in the regular season. The Panthers are even getting better as things go on. Their goaltender, Sergei Bobrovsky, said it was a great win, and no question to close out the sweep. It's going to take a huge effort coming up tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's just we keep we keep staying with the moment. It's obviously it's a great win for us tonight, and we enjoy tonight and get ready for the next moment. Yeah, they are a very skillful offensive team. They smart guys, and they're gonna make plays. It's you just focus on each and every moment, and it's a fun challenge. It's a fun challenge to play against them because they bring the best and they make smart plays. And I think opponent made a very smart play to pass to him. So it was a great challenge. The guys step up, but I think we defend well. We stay together, we protect the house, and just stay patient, and then we take our moments. As I said, they are a very high skillful team, and they're gonna make plays, and it doesn't matter what's the score. They're gonna come at you, and you just stay focused and sharp. They bring the great challenge, and it's fun to play against those guys, definitely.
Thanks, Sergey. Thank you.
And Bob's done a great job for them, and again, he's going to win the Conn Smythe if they end up closing it out and winning the next game. Meanwhile, the best player supposedly in the series, Connor McDavid, and very candid after the game yesterday, basically coming to terms that they're just unable to score in the way that they did during the regular season and have to come up with some other options.
I thought we had lots of looks. I thought the game was right there, and just a couple of mistakes, and they find a way to score. We put a lot of pucks there. I thought we did a good job of getting pucks to the net and bodies to the net. We can't score on the outside on these guys. You got to get to the middle. We're trying to figure them out. Obviously, we haven't beat them in 3 games, and we've had stretches of good. We've had stretches of bad. We're trying to figure them out.
Some days you tip your hat to the goalie, or do you need better shots?
A little bit of both. Obviously, you got to have a lot of respect for what he's doing, how he's playing, and at the same time, I think, I can only speak for myself, but there's looks there, and you got to bear down, and you got to put it in the net. Leon finds me on the backside, and just don't make the shot. There's looks there. It's just you got to make the shot. You got to make the play.
Yep, no success for Edmonton, down 0-3 going into tomorrow night. Well, success has been eluding Trevor Lawrence since he's been in the NFL as well. Certainly he's played okay, but a lot of discourse on social media yesterday as to whether or not he deserved to be paid this contract extension that he got. He becomes the 6th quarterback in NFL history to have an annual salary above $50 million with this new contract extension. And, certainly the 2021 quarterback class is quite checkered here when you think about it. Trevor Lawrence, $275 million in the extension, okay. After that, you have Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and, of course, Mac Jones, none of which who have shown any high level of success. I don't want to write off Fields yet because I think that he still could be good. But Deshaun Watson was $230 million. His new contract, Trevor Lawrence makes him the 9th quarterback with $100 million or more guaranteed. UFC Fight 303, Chandler Conor McGregor has been canceled. It was supposed to happen on June 29th. UFC's Dana White makes the announcement yesterday. McGregor was scheduled to headline the event, but he withdrew because of an injury, and it's the first time that Conor McGregor has ever pulled out of a fight for any reason. Who knows if they'll reschedule it. The fight was scheduled again for June 29th. Meanwhile, could the Big 12 change the name of the Big 12? I guess it's possible because they're exploring selling the Big 12's naming rights. How about this? They distributed nearly $470 million to member schools in overall distribution last year, and that number could be even higher. And right now it seems as though anything is on the table, and competitive balance with all of these conferences could lead to the Big 12 being called something else, or maybe the Big 12 fill in the blank. We just don't know. So we'll see if all the conferences have sponsorships on them as well. All right, over at the U.S. Open right now, Scottie Scheffler not winning. And by the way, didn't play particularly well in day 1. Day 2, Patrick Cantlay has the lead, followed by Rory McIlroy, Ludwig Oberg, Xander Schauffele, and Thomas Dietrich. Those are the 5 at the top of the leaderboard. Cantlay 5 under par. He is the leader. Rory McIlroy 4 under par. All right, well, the Celtics have now moved to the favorite in the NBA Finals, not for the series, for the game tonight in Dallas. Boston -1, total of 211.5, as Boston can make history with a victory this evening. Meanwhile, Terrence Shannon Jr. has been found not guilty of rape. A Kansas jury found that the Illinois basketball star not guilty of felony rape and aggravated sexual assault on Thursday following a week-long trial. In women's hoops, on the WNBA side, it is a victory for Caitlin Clark. That's right, 91-84, the final there, as she and the Indiana Fever defeated the Atlanta Dream. And also the Las Vegas Aces, their 3-game losing streak comes to an end. They beat the Phoenix Mercury, the final 103-99. In Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves finally get a victory over the Baltimore Orioles. They won 6-3 yesterday, so the Braves back on track a little bit. The Royals needed a walk-off to defeat the Yankees after getting it handed to them the last couple of days, so they win there. Garrett Crochet, 13 strikeouts. My gosh, has he been a sight for sore eyes this season? 13 strikeouts last night and only one off-speed pitch. The White Sox haven't had a great year, but Crochet, I would guess, is probably headed to the All-Star game coming up next month. And also last night, the New York Mets walked off the Miami Marlins. Yes, it was a tough one. 3-2 the final there yesterday. Tanner Scott gave it up. By the way, JD Martinez had a long, great career in Major League Baseball, had never had a walk-off until last night. So he ended up getting that accomplished last night at the hands of the Marlins. Oh, boy. All right, coming up next, it's time to preview tonight's game in the NBA. What else? Celtics Mavericks. Will it get closed out tonight? How much is Luka to blame? All the narratives that are being thrown out there on television, streaming, and social media, we'll cover them all for you coming up next. So stay with us here on NewsWire, as we're off and running here on this Friday. We'll be back right after these quick messages. Don't go away.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White. You got literally, I would say what? 5 guys that can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back, too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. Is this it for the NBA Finals? Could be tonight. The Celtics take on the Dallas Mavericks. History tells us usually, I don't know why they say that history tells us that it's hard to sweep. It may be hard to sweep, but Kyle, as we bring in Kyle Irving from Sporting News, more teams sweep than not when they're up 3-0 in the series. So I don't know whoever made up that narrative, but that indeed is the case. Kyle, is this it? Is this tonight's the last game of the NBA Finals? I mean, morally speaking, demoralized is the best word to use for Dallas. Like, I think that anytime you have two superstars like Dallas does, and Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, and by the way, I mean, it's not like Boston, threw up a 3 with no time left to win a game. Like, they soundly won all 3 games. I understand one was within the spread, but in a very demoralizing series, I personally think for the Mavericks, I don't know. I could not back them tonight.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. To me, it just feels like Dallas has had multiple opportunities to try and capitalize and get a game in this series. I think the way that they came out in Game 3 at home, Kyrie Irving finally got the lid off the rim. They were still getting contributions from Luka. The Celtics came out a little bit sluggish, and all of a sudden you blink and Boston's only down by 1 point at the end of the first quarter. The same goes for halftime, and then they have that major explosion in the third quarter, and then that's when you kind of start to realize, okay, we're just looking at one team is significantly better than the other here. It just feels like Boston has been more prepared. It feels like they've executed their game plan better. They've found a way to really wear down Luka Doncic and make him work for everything on both ends of the floor, and that's significantly impacting what he's done on the defensive end. In how he's kind of tailed off at the end of games here. Of 89 points that he scored in this series, only 8 of those have come in the fourth quarter because it just feels like he's running out of gas, and Boston is going to continue to attack him relentlessly. It doesn't feel like this Mavericks team, to me, is one that is going to continue to put up a fight. I think the Celtics are ready to put this series away and raise banner 18, get the Larry O'Brien trophy back to the place that it has been more times than anywhere else in the NBA.
Yeah, and again, look, we don't know anything. Truthfully speaking, this series and these games in particular, and I'm not singling you out, Kyle. And most of the opinions I've seen on the series, game by game, I've never seen more people wrong. I'm just being honest on this. Like, it seems like every time I see somebody talking about the series, well, this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. The opposite has ended up happening, and I think it's like people like rooting against Boston. It's just so bizarre. It feels like that's what's happening, at least to me. Okay, so. Luka Doncic, as I've talked about, Kyle, here on the show, I saw LeBron James go through this in Cleveland and go through it in Miami a little bit at the beginning. And we've seen history like this happen with Michael Jordan, with players that are superstars that have to get beat a little bit before they realize what it takes to win a finals. I'm not accusing that of Luka Doncic. And I know that Kyrie Irving's been there before, so he doesn't fit this category. Is that a fair narrative? Is that a fair assessment that Luka's going to learn from this, and in a year or 2 or whatever, we're going to see him winning an NBA championship? Or is it an apples and oranges conversation? Feel free to tell me I'm completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time.
No, I don't think that's completely wrong. I mean, a lot of players have to go through failure in the NBA final stage. I mean, the Celtics team is a perfect example. This is a night and day team compared to when they were in the finals in 2022. They just look so much more ready and poised. And I do think that we will see Luka Doncic back at this stage at some point in his career. And we'll probably see him raise a Larry O'Brien trophy at some point in his career. But, this is just one of those situations where, similar to the first time that LeBron was in the NBA Finals. I'm not calling Luka a one-man show. Obviously, he has Kyrie. He has other guys that contributed throughout the playoffs. But he got swept by a very, very sound team, the San Antonio Spurs, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. And this is kind of a similar feeling. Like, Luka is, for as much criticism as he is getting on the defensive end, everything that he has done offensively to get them to this point, they would not be here without his contributions. And I do think that it's almost gotten lost that going into the series, people were starting to wonder, is Luka Doncic the best player in the NBA? Obviously, the shortcomings on defense have come to the limelight in the NBA final stage against a very balanced Boston team that can attack you so many different ways. But he's an incredibly talented player. He's going to figure it out. He's going to get back to the stage. The thing that's interesting to me, though, is you have to be very specific about the type of team that you build around him because of his style of play and because of his defensive limitations. So I'm curious to see where the Dallas Mavericks learn from their mistakes this time around and how they can put a more suited roster around Luka to be successful.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And, again, I totally understand where you're coming from, and your analysis is probably better than mine on that subject. All right, so do we spend any time on Kristaps Porzingis in our conversation, Kyle? Is it necessary at this point? I mean, if they play him, great. If not, great. Does it matter? We made way too much of this guy going into the series. I understand he's a good player. But, I mean, I don't know. Boston plays Dallas 10 times more without him. They probably win 7, 8 times, right? Like, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's just not a factor. It just doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, he was really good in game one. I thought he did a great job of setting the tone in the series in those first 2 games, even playing unlimited minutes. But, to me, this feels like they're calling it a rare injury. There's obviously not that much information out there about it. He looks like he's walking around completely fine. Like, if you just saw the videos on social media, you would think that he would be able to play, but the medical staff ruled him out for game 3. I'm sure he is going to be doing everything that he can to play in this game tonight with the Larry O'Brien trophy in the building and the possibility of, participating in that before the Celtics have a chance to hoist that trophy. But, I'm not sure the medical staff is going to let him go again. They're up 3-0 in the series. He's already made his contributions to this team all season long. I don't know why they would risk re-injuring, that foot and ankle injury that he has going on. So I honestly don't expect Porzingis to suit up. I'm not sure it's going to make a major difference the way that we saw in game 3, but I'm sure he's going to do everything he can to be out there.
Yeah, I feel like if it was like Denver playing, like he would, have a huge impact in the series. I know he did play well initially, but I feel like to beat a team like that, maybe that's where it would have been required. But it does. I don't know. Dallas. I hate to say they're a paper West champ, but my gosh, it feels like it right now. They're just not playing well. Odds on FanDuel for a sweep -115. Would you sprinkle a little in, Kyle, on +170 for Game 5? I can't see it going further than that.
Yeah, I don't see it going further than game 5 either. I mean, if you're really feeling like Luka might try and prove everybody wrong from the talks that have happened in between games 3 and 4, then maybe you sprinkle a little bit on the series to go 5 games. But to me, honestly, I think this ends in 4 games tonight. I think Boston gets it done.
All right, Kyle. See you next week. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Panthers -2.5 games, +330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, +225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's been an eventful week in all of sports, but maybe the biggest surprise of the week was this Lakers coaching search, because that one kind of caught us off guard here a little bit. Usually where there's smoke, there's fire. Not enough fire to get Dan Hurley away from the University of Connecticut. and to get him to go coach the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, that's right, the Los Angeles Lakers, like the most storied franchise in sports in the NBA. If not one, they're number 2. But Hurley basically had his press conference yesterday and said that the temptation was there, but inevitably decided to run it back one more time with the Huskies.
It was, it was obviously tempting, and obviously the Lakers organization was just incredible. Once in a lifetime to be presented with an opportunity to lead one of the most storied franchises in sports. Get a chance to get to know some amazing people in Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss. So, but in the end, there was just too many reasons to be here and at UConn, where we, in the end, once you think it all the way through and go through the whole process.
Not unprecedented that a coach would turn down the professional ranks to stay in college. We've seen this happen before. But the kind of money that Hurley turned down may be unprecedented when you look at the history of sports. And you do have to wonder whether or not that this is just temporary. Is it just one more year of Hurley coaching UConn? If they win another championship, what would be left to prove? We'll see if it ends up being the right decision for him. Meanwhile, our very own Kevin Walsh, of course, with some really, I think, some interesting points on Luka Doncic, who has been a superstar all season long for the Dallas Mavericks, but has really come under fire for his play in the previous game, very specifically fouling out in the game. Kevin comes to the defense of Luka as they are on the verge of being swept tonight.
The NBA Finals has everyone talking on social media, and the fallout from Game 3 with a 3-0 lead for Boston, people playing the blame game on the Mavericks, who is responsible for the deficit. And incredibly, people are pushing Luka Doncic towards the top of the pile. His defense and complaining to refs apparently are why Dallas is down 3-0. This is ridiculous. Luka Doncic has been the runaway best player for Dallas all season long, all postseason long, and in this series. In Game 3, he was their second best player instead of the runaway best player like he was in Game 1 and Game 2. But Luka now in a bounce-back spot has to step up for Game 4. Books expected a points prop at 32.5. We'll all be watching and discussing. Craig, back to you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. I think more so the fact that Luka's criticism, I would say, fair to say, it's coming on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, he certainly could fly over that prop that Kevin mentioned tonight, but can he stop the players on the Boston Celtics? I mean, that's really what it comes down to in order for them to at least get this game within a bucket. Like, you'd love to see a game come down to like the final 30 seconds of any NBA Finals game. It just has not. Boston's dominated, and they're on the verge of making history and a chance to get to 80 wins with everything that's happened. I believe a reporter last night, in fact, asked Jason Tatum about this historical run that Boston is on. Statistically speaking, one of the best Boston Celtics seasons ever if they're able to close it out. So a reporter asked Tatum this last night, and his response may surprise you.
Obviously, it'd be cool enough to hang an 18th banner. I get that's the bigger thing, but there's never been a Celtic team ever with a better playoff record than what you guys have to this point. You guys have a chance to be second all time, and I mean, it's like the 86 team went 82-18. You guys could be 2 games away from that as like the second best Celtic team ever in terms of record. How much more would that add to it when you think of all that this franchise has done? You guys could be at the top of a whole lot of lists in that record book.
I didn't know that. That would be really cool. But you know, you guys probably would say we didn't play anybody to get here, so we just have to do it again next year.
Thank you, Jason.
I don't think anybody is going to be saying that at the end of this season. From a historical perspective, the Celtics are awesome. I think it's also fair to say that they've been a little boring. But you know what? The Detroit Pistons, back in my day, old man here, they were pretty boring too, but they just kept winning championships. We'll take a break. We'll come back with Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report next.
got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back, too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Well, it's a Friday. We got Pat Evans back with us here on the show from Legal Sports Report. We're going to go over the latest in a couple of states. We don't talk about that often here on the show. Updates in Tennessee, Arizona as well. Let's bring Pat in. And Pat, summertime, I know for you in Michigan, getting ready, of course, for a little outdoor stuff I know is in your future for the weekend as well. Always great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show.
No, thank you so much. I'll tell you, it's so important for me to be on this show that I was up late traveling back from a conference. I got in at 2 a.m. After sitting on a tarmac in Atlanta for 2 hours with no AC. So I might be a little off my game today, but I'm here just because I needed to see you.
Oh, well, I couldn't be more honored, Pat, that you would make that appearance here on the show, especially after no AC. I can't imagine sitting on a plane with that. But Arizona, they could use a lot of AC. It gets very hot there, of course. It's a dry heat, as they say. Anyway, bad joke. Arizona Department of Gaming with an announcement. I know that they've had sports betting there. They've had sports betting operators there, but it has been mostly dominated by a couple of different sports books. Why open it up for other providers? Simply put, get some money? Is that it?
I mean, yeah, the licensing fees would help a little bit, I'm sure. But yeah, it's such an interesting market. To your point, FanDuel and DraftKings, as well as BetMGM and Caesar, control, I think, more than 90% of the market. Now, there's 16 operators in the state. So that's, do the math there. That's 12 operators that have 10%. That's crazy. But sure enough, they're opening up the license application process again, the third time they've done such a thing since the market launched in fall of 2021. And it's largely because there are, in Arizona sports betting law, 20 slots for sports betting operators, 10 for the sports teams in the state and 10 for the tribes. There's been kind of a revolving door in Arizona at the bottom end of it. We've seen quite a few operators drop out. Fubo, Twin Spires, recently Unibet and WinBet have all pulled out. So right now there's only 16 operators, so there's 4 slots open. They figure, hey, let's go ahead and try to fill those back out. What operators are left? In the last 2 rounds of open application periods, we've had Fanatics jump in and Bet365 jump in. Those are 2 big players in the industry, kind of making their way and trying to crack into any sort of market share. So what is left? I mean, Circa with their huge Las Vegas resort, not too far away from Phoenix. You have to imagine they're going to look at the market again. Maybe Underdog looking to expand their market, as they're only live in North Carolina at the moment with their sports betting product. And it's interesting because there's a few things. There's only been 8 sports team licenses given out since the beginning, because according to the law, you have to be playing at the highest level. And I think your stadiums have to have a certain amount of capacity. And so, we know the USL team, the second tier soccer team, has applied a couple of times, but they're not at the highest level, so they haven't been granted a license. There are 2, there's an indoor football league team in Phoenix that has a license, so that's deemed highest level. There's 2 other IFL teams in Arizona that could also get a license. And then I just heard a rumor yesterday that the rodeo, PBR or the like, I'm not exactly sure what organization might be looking at securing a license in Arizona. So that could be the sports teams angles. I have to imagine the tribes, there's 16 tribes with gaming operations, and there's only 8 licenses connected to the tribes right now. So I have to imagine that'll fill back out with 2 more tribes. Interestingly enough, there are 2 smaller sports books, Sahara Bet, which is, of course, tied to the Arizona Coyotes, which no longer exist. Well, that's a complicated situation, but they're staying for now. And then Desert Diamond, which is a tribal endeavor that's actually outperforming a lot of sports books like ESPN Bet and Bet Rivers. So lots of options in Arizona. This will close sometime in July, and then we'll know early August if any new operators are coming. So it's a fun state to pay attention to, and I hold it close to my heart because it was one of the first states I started paying attention to when I joined LSR.
Yeah, no, I remember you talking about it initially when you've been on with us now for over a year, Pat. So I totally get that. Now, this is an embarrassing story. I don't know who it's embarrassing for. You'll have to tell me here. It occurs in the state of Tennessee, where there's a couple of sports books that were fined because they couldn't pay the winners. I mean, is this an accurate story? If this is true, Pat, like, who's to blame here? Is it the state? Is it the sports betting operators? I mean, this can't be allowed throughout the country, can it?
Well, Tennessee is an interesting market, and for one of them is Fanatics. They self-reported that they allowed a couple of sports betting accounts that had self-excluded themselves to come off that list. Now, that was the state level one. They caught that they were also on their nationwide self-exclusion list. So they were able to say, whoa, we need to fix this code, did it, self-reported, agreed to a fine with the committee. Zen Sports, on the other hand, was found in December to not have enough money in their bank account to cover any sort of all their liabilities. And that's a big no-no. There's a huge, if you go to the story at Legal Sports Report, there's a huge kind of stipulation that the spokesperson at the council sent me and said, they didn't meet this. Apparently it was just some financial, not doing it right. I don't know how to put that, but supposedly they've been good since then, and they've carried enough money in their account to cover all the liabilities. But again, you never know with these small operators and kind of operators that, Zen Sports not in any other state. You have to wonder, are they in trouble, and what's going to happen after that? So again, a state just kind of interesting to watch. And like you said, not necessarily a great issue to get fined for, but again, so far they say, and the wagering council has said that they're in accordance with the law at this point. So, but who knows if they will be in the future. So again, we'll watch it closely and let you know.
Yeah, and that's why you guys cover it at Legal Sports Report. Another story that you cover, of course, is the offshore market. We talked about this on the show earlier in the week, and this is one that I can't figure out, Pat, at all. This is the state of Michigan, which is where you live. The control board wants Bovada out of the market. They don't want them to operate. I mean, they're illegal anyway. Why would they listen? Well, what's going to happen? They still are going to operate. I mean, explain this one to me. I don't get this one at all.
So at the conference I was just at the North American Gaming Regulators Association, Michigan was kind of the talk of the town. A couple panels said, actually one panelist said they are the varsity team of regulators in the U.S. gaming industry. So that, the AGA says, look at Michigan to see what they're doing. But to your point, and a couple industry sources told me that this week, Bovada's already illegal. Why do they have to listen? They're not at the will of the gaming board and see what happens. That said, it sounds like multiple regulators are going to send similar C&Ds to Bovada and see where it again, kind of to your point again, it's illegal in these markets. They don't have to respond at all. I think the deadline for Michigan was today or yesterday. I don't recall exactly, but anyway, it was a huge issue at the NAGRA conference. And, one panel was kind of talking about, what's next in the industry and where are we going in regulations. And, they were talking about raising taxes that we saw in Illinois and we've talked about a lot. They talked about the NCAA prop bet bans, that we could see more of those. And then somebody goes, listen, this is already a very heavily regulated industry. We all know we're doing our jobs. We know that this is catching a lot of things that hadn't been caught in the past in terms of, the players doing betting and any sort of scandals. So let's turn our attention to the unregulated market where the scandals are actually really dangerous and can really stem from now. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch after this conference, kind of what regulators turn their attention to more in the coming months.
Yeah, keep me updated on this one, Pat, because this has bizarre written all over it. So we'll see what it holds for the future. Thanks again for coming on. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Greg. You too.
All right, Coach Young up next.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White. You got literally, I would say what? 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
There's a chance tonight is the final game in the NBA, which I said earlier in the show, but you are watching live, so I'll come up with something else. Let's see. There's a chance the Celtics close out the series tonight. I'll use that. Coach Young is with us to give us a preview. Boston is favored. It is a very short spread, -1, total of 211.5. It's been a fun NBA season. It has been a very anticlimactic NBA playoffs. Let's call it what it is. Extremely anticlimactic on a lot of different levels. Boston just mowed their way through the East. And we got to the finals, Coach, and Dallas has proved to be a non-competitor to the Boston Celtics. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it, barring them changing our opinion with not just winning tonight, but really winning 2 games in this series. No game has come down to the final 30 seconds. No game has come down to the final minute. You have a player who is the best player on the losing side of the team being criticized by everybody in the world for not being a good defender and playing poorly down the stretch. And you have this boring Boston team just crushing teams and leaving teams in their wake. I don't know if there's anything that I haven't said that is left for you to say, and I'm sorry for that. But I am just utterly disappointed that the season could potentially end tonight without even seeing any competition at the world's highest level of basketball.
What you said pretty much is spot on, Craig.
Sorry.
It's always a pleasure to be on with you, as always. And I think, when you look at first at Boston, the questions that people had, including myself, was, well, they haven't been challenged yet, right? Like, they play against Miami with no Jimmy Butler. They play against Cleveland, no Donovan Mitchell the last 2 games, no Karis LeVert the last game, no Jared Allen the entire series. Then they get to Indiana, and they don't play against Tyrese Halliburton the last 2.5 games. So everybody's saying, well, all right, well, now let's get a team that has their full roster, right? Here comes Dallas. And it's anticlimactic, and it's it's frustrating because it's the whole NBA playoffs. Listen, nobody cares about Game 7 of Orlando and Cleveland. Let's be honest. All right. The only good series that we probably had was Knicks Sixers first round. I would say Knicks Pacers second round. I would say Minnesota versus Denver. In the semifinals. You could maybe say Dallas, OKC, that went 6. There were some tight games. But that's it. Like, that's not a lot of series that's been really well played. So hopefully we get a better performance tonight out of Dallas. And I think it speaks to the fact of Dallas's only pathway is if Luka and Kyrie play well at the same time. If one of them is off, when the first 2 games it was Kyrie, doesn't help. When you have game number 3 and the performance of Luka Doncic, which offensively was great, fantastic. I can't say enough about it. But when someone gives up as many points defensively as he scores offensively, when you have a guy that's your best player, one of the top 5 players in the world, try to take a charge at near half court, 35, 40 feet away, with 5 fouls, with 4 minutes left to go, is grossly irresponsible. And to double down on that, he goes and he complains to the media afterwards. This is a Luka Doncic that's been a problem, Craig. Let's be honest, for his entire career. People go back and look. When he first got to Dallas, Jason Kidd talked about him talking too much to the officials. He cries after calls. He cries after calls he gets. He doesn't get. And here's the end of it. The press conference showed a lack of accountability. It showed a lack of leadership. And if Luka Doncic is going to be considered an all-time great, he's got to do it on both sides of the floor. If he plays both sides of the floor and Luka and Kyrie play well together, can they extend this series? Yes. Can they do it 4 times in a row? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I think if they just kept playing against each other 10, 15 times, I feel like Boston would win almost every single time. Look, it's really unfair to say, because they're not there and Dallas is, and I need to give the Mavericks credit for getting this far. But I think it is a fair question to ask if you think matchup-wise, another team in the West would have fared better against Boston. I know that's really like burning Mavericks and burning their fans, and I'm sorry to do it because that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm still like wondering what happened to Denver, by the way. Like, even if Denver would have lost to Boston here in this spot, I don't know why I think, Coach, I keep thinking like Denver would have played, won some games against Boston. Maybe I'm just out of my mind here. Is that a fair question to ask? I don't want to do that to suffering fans who are losing right now, but I got to ask that question.
If you think about the fact that Dallas was 16th ranked defensively in metrics and defensive rating during the regular season, that is not something that you want to be at when you come into the playoffs. Playoffs are about getting stops, particularly in the half court. So Listen, you got to give Dallas their credit. They got to the finals. Very good for them. Were they a better matchup than Denver for Boston? Denver would have been a much harder matchup for Boston because of the factor of Nikola Jokic and the fact that they were better defensively. Would Minnesota been a better matchup? I think so. Better defensively, and they had between Conley and McDaniels, two guys that I thought could have been doing a better job versus Tatum and Brown. But also the fact that they had other scores that could score. See, here's the problem, Craig, and this is how people have to understand this. Luke and Kyrie have to do way better in their matchup versus Tatum and Brown than the rest of the players of Boston versus Dallas, because that's where Boston gets you. It's not just with Holiday, not just with Brown and Tatum. It's with Holiday. It's with Porzingis when he's there. It's with White. It's with Hauser. It's with Pritchard. It's with Horford. That's how they beat you, because it's not just the top two guys. It's the rest of the guys can crush your second group guys. That is where Boston is really, really good. Listen, kudos to them. They're going to win the NBA championship. I think Dallas wins tonight, but I don't know if they win on Monday.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens, Coach. We'll hope for a Game 5. I don't know if we'll get it. Thanks again for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Have a great weekend.
All right, Coach Young, you'll see him all of this weekend, including betting above the rim on Saturday. We'll take a quick time out here on the show. We got Last Licks coming up next. Brooks Koepka at the PGA Tour taking a little shot at the media. Was that a good idea or not? Play it next.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back, too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Of course, the excitement continues this week at the U.S. Open. Funny media session from one of the players. We're going to get to that in just a second. Also touch on some NHL news, but not on the Stanley Cup, ironically. Let's get it started as we close out the show on this Friday with some last licks. All right, we get started with the new hockey team. Yes, Ryan Smith is the new owner, I guess, of this Utah hockey team that starts up next season. This is the purchase of the Phoenix Coyotes, who just couldn't find a new home for their club. And Utah has decided on a new franchise name, or at least temporarily, on these jerseys. Now, again, you can check out the jerseys on social media. Quick Google will just take you there. But I'm going to tell you their team name. It is, get this, the Utah Hockey Club. Congrats. Kind of has a Washington football team sort of feel to it. Is this like the new thing when there's an expansion team? You just, don't give a name, don't give a mascot, at least temporarily. You just name it Washington football team, Utah Hockey Club. What about the new Las Vegas baseball team that's not going to be the Oakland A's? Are they going to be called the Las Vegas baseball team coming up? It's still years away. They can make a decision in 2 years, 3 years. They got to build a stadium and everything too. Long way to go. But yeah, I mean, do you have like a focus group for that where you could come up with something? Do you like have some people that maybe could come up with a name? Credit that they got the franchise and everything like that, and they still have some time to get this figured out. But cool jerseys, but a little bizarre with the name. That would be my opinion there. We'll start there with the Utah Hockey Club, and those are their jerseys there. Okay, Brooks Koepka is not making any new friends in the media. We'll see if he makes any friends on the course. I know Bryson DeChambeau and he are not going to be best friends this weekend. They never have been. On Thursday, Brooks Koepka shot an even par 70, and at Pinehurst after his round, it is ceremonial to speak to the media, to talk about how you played, how you didn't play, do news conferences. A lot of pressure under these players too. Remember, it's you basically against yourself for a while until you get to that final pairing on Sunday. But Koepka, very interesting with the media yesterday, said this, quote, "I opted not to do news conferences just because I didn't feel like it. Same questions every week. The lack of creativity with questions is kind of boring. I know I'm not a media favorite either, so it's not like anyone will notice." So listen, as somebody who has been in the locker room, in the clubhouse, and everywhere else, and I've interviewed them all, trust me, I've interviewed them all, I can tell you that it is sort of mundane, and it is for these guys sort of annoying to get asked the same questions over and over again. And some people can't even ask the right questions. I always took time and pride to make sure I asked good questions to get good answers, because that's, I felt like that was part of the job, still is when I do it. But Brooks needs to know that the paycheck is coming in. You kind of just have to go through and do it. Like for every Marshawn Lynch, there's millions of other athletes who are like, yes, I'm just going to do these interviews and give my best to make sure that my fans see me. So Brooks Koepka not making any new fans here. I can tell you that. And especially if he ends up in contention or winning this thing. Curious to see how that will go with the media after. All right, finally, let's rank the best and 5 worst Major League Baseball stadiums based on their Yelp reviews. This is according to USA Today. Who do you think are in the top 5? You want to think about it? I'll give you 5 seconds while I talk to think about it. Here you go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here it is. Number 5, Wrigley Field in Chicago. Number 4, Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Number 3, Fenway Park. Number 2, and this is my personal favorite, I've been there, Oracle Park in San Francisco. Used to be AT&T. Love that place. And number 1 overall, the top park according to Yelp reviews in the USA Today, PNC Park in Pittsburgh. So there you have it. Those are the top 5. Figured we'd end the show that way today. Maybe you're going to a ballpark this weekend, this evening, somewhere along those lines. All right, that will do it. Wow, fun week of shows as we get ready to get out of here. Let me tell you what's coming up next here on SportsGrid. We got the early line at 12 o'clock Eastern. That is followed by Scott Farrell, Coast to Coast in the house at 3 o'clock. Game time decisions at 6. In-game live prime time at 9. And Gabe and Sports Rage tonight at 10 p.m. We are live all the way through 1 a.m. Eastern time. So those of you watching the NBA, if it ends up coming to a close, Gabe will have all that action for you tonight. Also want to thank all this week our associate producer Frank and my producer Michael Cohen, our guests on the show today, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report, and of course Coach Young, Kyle Irving from Sporting News. That will do it for me. I'll see you tomorrow morning if you're interested in fantasy sports. 9 a.m. Eastern. I'll be here with you talking some fantasy baseball. If that's not your thing and this show is, I hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. Have a great one.